Lisa and her three friends, Mark, Sarah, and Jenna, were excited about their camping trip in the Pacific Northwest. The forest, with its towering evergreens and winding trails, felt like the perfect escape from city life. But the locals had warned them about the strange whispers people sometimes heard in the woods at night. "It's just a story to scare tourists," Mark said, waving it off as they unloaded their gear. The first day passed uneventfully. They hiked to a secluded clearing far from the main trail, set up camp, and enjoyed a perfect evening under the stars. As the fire crackled, Sarah joked about the whispering trees, mimicking ghostly voices to make Jenna laugh. By midnight, they all retreated to their tents. The forest was silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves. Lisa lay awake, staring at the tent ceiling, unable to shake a strange feeling of unease. She chalked it up to exhaustion. But then she heard it, a faint, distant murmur carried by the breeze. At first it was too soft to make out, just an odd, rhythmic sound that rose and fell. She strained to listen. "Lisa!" She froze. Her name, whispered so clearly, sent chills racing down her spine. She unzipped the tent slightly and peeked out. The dying embers of the campfire cast a faint orange glow. The other tents were zipped shut and everything was still. "Lisa, come closer." Her flashlight trembled in her hand as she scanned the trees. The voice wasn't coming from the camp. It was coming from deeper in the woods. Against her better judgment, she stepped out, her bare feet brushing against the cool dirt. "Lisa, we need you." It wasn't just one voice now. It was a chorus, overlapping and weaving together like a soft, mournful song. As Lisa stepped toward the sound, the air grew colder, and the trees seemed to close in around her. She found herself in a clearing she didn't recognize. The whispers surrounded her now. "Stay with us." Lisa spun around, her flashlight beam slicing through the dark, but she saw nothing. Panic set in, and she turned back toward camp, only to realize she had no idea which direction to go. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Suddenly, she heard someone call her name, Mark. His voice broke through the eerie murmurs like a lifeline. "Lisa, where are you?" The whispers hissed angrily as she stumbled toward the sound of her friend's voice. When she finally reached the camp, her friends were waiting, pale and shaken. "We heard them too," Sarah whispered. "They called out to us. They knew our names." None of them slept for the rest of the night. At dawn, they packed up and left. Years later, Lisa discovered that the forest had once been home to a small settlement that mysteriously vanished. Some said the spirits of those who disappeared still wandered the woods, searching for new voices to join their haunting chorus. Kyle was no stranger to hiking alone. For years, he had explored remote trails without incident, relishing the solitude and the chance to disconnect from the world. That summer, he decided to camp in a forest known for its untouched beauty and isolation. The first day of hiking was uneventful, though Kyle couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The forest was unusually quiet. There were no birds, no rustling leaves, not even the distant hum of insects. By the time he found a clearing and set up camp, the silence had become unnerving. He lit a fire, cooked dinner, and tried to ignore the heavy stillness around him. As the sun set, the shadows stretched longer, and the trees seemed to loom closer. Kyle crawled into his tent, trying to convince himself that the forest quiet was just part of its charm. He drifted into an uneasy sleep. Sometime in the middle of the night, he woke to a sound, a faint crunching, like footsteps on dry leaves. His heart pounded as he listened. The sound was slow, deliberate, and getting closer. Probably just an animal, he thought, though the thought offered little comfort. The footsteps stopped right outside his tent. Kyle held his breath, clutching his flashlight. Summoning his courage, he unzipped the tent just enough to shine the light outside. The beam revealed nothing but trees. Kyle stepped out, his senses on high alert. Then he saw it, a shadowy figure standing just beyond the tree line. It was tall, impossibly tall, with limbs that seemed too long for its body. It didn't move, but Kyle could feel its eyes on him. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice trembling. The figure tilted its head as if studying him. Kyle stumbled back into his tent, zipped it shut, and grabbed his knife. The footsteps resumed, circling his tent slowly. Methodically, they stopped, started again, and stopped once more. Kyle sat frozen, his mind racing. The hours dragged on until finally the first rays of dawn crept into the tent. When he stepped outside, the clearing was empty. But on the ground circling his tent were footprints, large, human-like, and impossibly deep. Kyle packed up and left without looking back. Though he never returned to that forest, he sometimes dreams of the figure, watching him from the shadows, waiting for him to return. Anna and her cousin David had spent countless summers exploring the woods near their grandparents' farm. The forest was vast, with trails that seemed to stretch endlessly into the horizon. Their grandparents had always warned them not to wander too far, but that summer the two were feeling especially adventurous. One humid afternoon, they ventured deeper into the woods than ever before. As the hours passed, the trails became narrower and the trees grew denser. Just as they were about to turn back, they spotted it, a small, weathered cabin nestled among the trees. The cabin looked ancient. Its roof sagged under the weight of moss and rot, and its wooden walls were dark with age. The windows were broken, and the door hung slightly ajar. "Let's check it out," David said, his curiosity overriding his caution. The interior was just as eerie as the exterior. Dust coated every surface, and the air was thick and musty. A single table stood in the center of the room, its surface scarred with deep grooves. On the wall hung a photograph of a family, a man, a woman, and two children. Their faces were faded, almost smudged, but their eyes seemed to follow Anna and David as they moved through the room. David wandered into another room and called out, "Anna, come look at this." She found him in what looked like a child's bedroom. Toys were scattered across the floor, wooden blocks, a ragged doll, and a small rocking horse. But what struck Anna was how clean they looked, as if someone had just been playing with them. "We shouldn't be here," Anna whispered. Before David could respond, they heard it, a faint giggle like a child's laugh echoing through the cabin. They bolted for the door, but when they stepped outside, the forest was different. The trail they had taken was gone, replaced by thick, tangled underbrush. The air felt heavier, and the trees seemed closer together, their branches reaching toward the cabin like claws. Panicking, they tried to retrace their steps, but no matter which direction they went, they always ended up back at the cabin. Desperate, they went inside to regroup. The interior had changed. The furniture was gone, the walls were crumbling, and the air was icy cold. The photograph on the wall was still there, but this time, the faces were clear. Anna gasped. The children in the photo looked exactly like her and David. The giggle came again, louder this time, followed by a whisper. "Stay with us." Terrified, they fled into the forest, running until they collapsed onto a dirt road. When they told their grandparents what had happened, their grandmother turned pale. "The cabin, it only appears for those it wants," she said. Anna and David never ventured into the woods again, but sometimes they still hear faint giggles when the wind blows through the trees at night.